British warship HMS Prince of Wales. So now you have three aircraft carriers from the United States and from the UK directly in striking distance of Iran. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I've actually been on the Nimitz. It was stationed in San Diego, I believe. It's a disaster. I mean, like, we're just getting dragged into this war so unnecessarily. I just, yeah, it's just crazy. Like I said, I haven't really gotten an update since yesterday, but I mean, it's just, Israel attacks Iran unprovoked, and then Iran retaliates, and all of a sudden now it's our fucking problem that we have to once again bail them out of. I think it's crazy.
Well, this is what's the craziness, right? And this is when we look at Trump's statements, he's talking about how he wants to A, let them fight it out, B, given indications that they may join, although in other reports they said that he's not gonna. I mean, if Donald Trump was to join the war, where does that leave his legacy? Because my thought was always this guy's never gonna do it because this just destroys all of his legacy. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I told you guys he was going to fucking do it. I mean, that was my whole issue with voting for him. Is I was like, he's going to drag us into war with Iran. I literally said that, and then I said the biggest issue is that people are going to blindly follow him more than they would Kamala Harris. I mean, obviously, I was not a Kamala Harris fan. I think she's a fucking dumpster fire. But I believe that people would blindly follow Trump. And I think that they obviously have some kind of dirt or blackmail on him or whatever. Or maybe he's just, monetarily motivated. But either way, I'm not going to be surprised if we go to war with Iran for Israel. And this is exactly the disaster that I predicted. So that's why I was not advocating for Trump, because normally it would be, on paper, it's like the most black and white, easiest decision ever. It's like, obviously he's a much better choice than Kamala Harris, but I think this is a bigger issue than almost anything else. And yeah, I will not be surprised if he drags us into war. I mean, everything's been set up for that. And I also will not be surprised if there's some sort of a false flag attack to try and rally the Americans, to get into this war either. So I think we should expect to see something like that happen on the near horizon.
100% agree. I just want to welcome Myron onto the stage as well. Myron, always much love. Appreciate you coming on as always. Do jump in whenever you want, bro.
I was only going to say, I saw you guys were talking about Jelani earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if he's allowing the Israelis to utilize that airspace. Because Jelani, I think, I'm almost certain Jelani coordinated with the Israelis to, conduct the attack on Aleppo, take over Syria. Obviously, they had the sanctions lifted when Trump went over to the Middle East. So I'm pretty confident that a part of the sanctions being lifted on Syria was obviously being friendly to Israel, which is what they want, right? They want all these, Arab powers around them to be friendly, and this is why they want a regime change so much with Iran. So I would not be surprised if Jelani struck a deal with Trump, as part of the sanction relief, that they would cooperate with Israel in times of conflict. And I think that's coming to show now.
Yeah, highly likely, highly likely. It's just, the only reason I didn't post it was because there was no second source, and because it's such a sectarian issue, I just wanted to double source it. But for sure, if you had to ask me on the balances of probability, did it happen? I would say for sure. In terms of, yeah, Myron, do jump in whenever you want as well, bro. But Dan, just bringing it back to the United States of America, you're saying that you expected Trump to do this. I mean, this isn't normal, right? Iran, other than bombing Iran from the air, then you basically have all of the military bases in the region at risk. It's literally causes chaos for the United States of America. They're in extreme amount of debt. They're already involved in the war with Ukraine and Russia. This basically destroys any future the United States of America has. And so you said that in terms of a false flag. So in terms of false flag, I did a poll, and 90% of people, and I think there was 20,000 votes, said that they believe that a false flag is going to happen because everyone just is supporting Iran. The vast majority of people, even in the United States, you've seen, are supporting Iran. Do you think that people will believe it? Because now, as soon as something happens, people automatically say false flag anyway.
I mean, I think that we are in a bit of an echo chamber in Twitter. I think the average American is borderline mentally retarded. But if you I don't know, you just look at the history of this stuff, and it's like, Israel, commits war crimes, every fucking senator and politician, we support Israel. Netanyahu gets, indicted for, for war crimes. We have him, speak in the U.S. and we talk about, the fact that the committee is anti-Semitic and everybody tweets their support of Israel. Israel bombs Iran after President Trump literally fucking told them wait 24 hours for the peace negotiations, and then every single senator and congressman tweets their support of Israel. I mean, it's just like, it's fucking crazy. The idea that we're going to get dragged into this war seems, pretty obvious. I don't know. Israel's just not stopping. They're just fucking poking the bear, and all of our politicians just blindly support no matter what. Like, we stand with Israel, our greatest fucking ally. I feel like I'm watching Groundhog Day with these retards tweets. So I don't know. They're not going to stop fucking with Iran, and our politicians clearly are not going to stop sticking up for Israel no matter what they do. So, us getting dragged into the war seems pretty, imminent. I don't know how to see it any other way. It's sad. I don't want it to happen, but I don't see how it doesn't happen.
I also want to add to what Dan said there real quick. For those that don't know, I was actually out on the streets. I've been doing this segment where on Friday nights, I pretty much set up a table and I put up like a prompt sign or whatever. And yesterday I put Israel's not our greatest ally, and I had a couple of people actually come up. And just to kind of give you guys a gist of the American public, a lot of Americans don't even know that Israel has nuclear weapons, right? Or they don't know how they procured those nuclear weapons, or they don't know that Israel attacked Iran first. So the average American is very, very clueless on what's going on in the Middle East and with this conflict. And then it's even more interesting because a couple of Israelis or a couple of Jewish people came up and said, oh, well, they have a right to defend themselves, blah, blah, and they don't even know. I'm like, well, I find it interesting that Israel's trying to remove a nuclear program from Iran when they're running an illegal nuclear program in their own country. And a lot of people didn't even know that they have nuclear weapons. So with what Dan's saying here on Twitter, where we kind of have our own echo chamber a little bit, he's kind of right because, the American public doesn't know a lot of this stuff, unfortunately. So, I think it's very important why, sometimes we have to sound like a broken record and keep repeating ourselves. But, there's thousands of people in the space right now that are probably hearing this information for the first time. I'm on stream right now with people on YouTube and Rumble, Kick, etc., that have probably never heard this information. So, our duty is really to spread this information out to as many people as possible and educate them on, the reality of what's going on here with this whole nuclear deal, and how the very country that's attacking Iran for having nukes or potentially getting nukes has an illegal nuclear program themselves. So, yeah, just kind of crazy how people are unaware of this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was, I traveled the United States a lot, and I was in Hawaii, just as one example. I was speaking to some Democrats, right, from LA, and they were like, oh, they think the election was stolen this time, right? But then I was like, listen, do you actually think it was, or do you think it was because the vast majority of people are disgusted by the American stance when it comes to Israel? And they were shook. A lot of these Democrats don't even realize why they lost and what were the main deciding factors for why people switched from Democrat to Republican or voted for Trump thinking he's going to be anti-war. So I agree with you. A lot of people are unaware of what's happening. And so that's why I think, Dan, if he did go for a presidential run and had serious impact, it would actually educate so many people. At the worst, a lot of people will be red pilled, and then at the best, he could even win. So yeah, I do think that awareness is definitely needed. Dan, just or Marion actually, in terms of false flag, actually Marion, this is to you because I asked Dan this question already. In terms of false flag, from your own experience, are you right? We're in an echo chamber. If there was to be a false flag, though, what do you think? Do you think that would convince Americans to jump in, or do you think this time they wouldn't?
I would say people would definitely be skeptical. People would absolutely be skeptical. We saw obviously what happened with Epstein. We saw, Kash Patel and, Bongino get in there and say, oh no, Epstein actually did kill himself, blah, blah, blah. So, America's trust in our government and our law enforcement agencies is lower than it's ever been. So I think any type of attack now would definitely warrant some questioning or some skepticism, given especially since the fact that we're in a very sensitive time where, Israel is basically asking for help. I think the latest news is Israel is trying to get U.S. intervention. And this isn't the first time. They've done false flags before to get the United States involved. One of the biggest ones was 9/11. We know that they're involved in there. There's irrefutable evidence that there were Zionist fingerprints all over 9/11. And when you look at the culmination of what happened, Israel benefited significantly after 9/11 and through the war on terror. We basically went ahead and eliminated a lot of their enemies for them after 9/11. So I don't put anything past the Israelis at all anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's just craziness what you see in terms of like what's happening. Coming back to the events right now, let me just quickly give some breaking news, and then I'll definitely jump in with a few more questions. The first one is that, and remember, there was a major cyber attack today. Myron, I think you jumped on the space before, where the Iranians made it seem like that they'd done a drone attack, but they hadn't, and then they were in shelters. But it did mean a number of Israelis, A, were either not unable to get into the shelters, or B, were not given updates while they were inside the shelters. So that was a big news. In terms of from the Iranian perspective, Dan, obviously you've served. You've got a scenario where there's been a lot of attacks between the two. There's been a lot of hits. If this is elongated, then the missiles that both sides have been using has to be significantly reduced. Do you think this goes on quite long, or do you think this ends quite shortly based on your military experience?
Well, I wouldn't say my military experience comes into play at all with this, though. I'm just looking at it from basic math, right? Like every Iron Dome missile, doesn't it cost them like $1 million per missile? And they're sending in, cheap drones. And so, and they've, clearly, whether they allowed it to happen or whether it was just overwhelmed, missiles have struck, right? Like the Iron Dome was not impenetrable. And so, if the battle is every time, they send a drone, it costs, whatever, $1,000. And every time Israel has to take it down, it's millions of dollars. I mean, I think Israel loses that battle, right? So it's just kind of like a cost there. And so the problem is we're just paying for all this shit. That's the brutal part, is like the American tax dollars are just going to fund this nonsense. And look, if they were just defending themselves, and let's just say they had a right to be there. Let's say they weren't fucking genocidal assholes. Let's say they weren't, an ethnocentric, apartheid state that's, fucking stealing land that's not theirs. Let's say they weren't illegally acquiring nukes. Let's just say like they had the right to be there and they were getting attacked unprovoked by Iran and we were defending them. Like, okay, maybe. But the fact that they're fucking starting this fight, and then, we have to just come in and bail them out every time. It's just crazy. So that's where I really have issue, is that, like, how is this benefiting Americans? Like, how can we justify paying for this after our president specifically told them not to attack? Like, how could it ever in a million years be justified that we have to pay for their defense when they attacked after we told them not to?
For sure.
Yeah, no, Dan, you're 100% right. It costs them, like, these Iranian drones cost somewhere between $20,000 to $50,000. Those interceptor missiles to take those drones down are at least double to triple that price. So yeah, I mean, from a financial perspective and just a resource perspective, it's significantly more expensive to shoot these, weapons down than it is for Iran to shoot them over. So yeah, over time,
Myron, to give you an real quick cost comparison, after True Promise 2, Israel spent over $1 billion on the various interceptor missiles for its defense, which failed, obviously. Iran spent about 50-60 million, to give you the cost comparison.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Just want to interject that.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense, because the drones are not that expensive because they manufacture them themselves. So
they're cheap.
Yeah, they're very cheap compared to the interceptor missiles, man. So yeah, I agree with you, Dan. They can't do this forever. They can't fund it forever. And that doesn't even, we haven't even talked about hypersonic missiles. This is just for like drones and some cruise missiles, which the Iron Dome and Arrow and all these other, and this David Sling are designed to intercept. But when it comes to like the hypersonic missiles, which Iran has a lot of those, they can't do anything with those.
Okay, another question for both of you guys, actually. I definitely want to hear your both opinions on this. Is we heard reports earlier today that there were a number, multiple, minimum 6. I think there was 8 guys. You guys can remind me. I mean, the team's been on the pit space for the past like 72 hours, but specifically the last 24 hours. but there's been about 6 to 8 earthquakes from around 4 to 5 on the Richter scale in Iran, which seems to suggest that there is a possibility that this could either it's just natural earthquakes and it's coincidental where some earthquakes do happen in that region, but then there is this idea that there is a possibility that this is Iran possibly testing their nuclear facility. Some of the testing happened on the Iran-Pakistan border. The entry was blocked in terms of from the Pakistan-Iran perspective, the Iran border crossing. If that's true, and this is just speculation, but we're just speculating that this is a possibility that this was happening, and Iran has done their nuclear tests now. What does that mean? Guys, let's go Dan first, then we'll go Myron.
I mean, I hope they fucking do. I mean, I don't think there's a country in the world that deserves nukes more than Iran. I mean, the example I gave the other day is you got 2 kids fighting in school and you make it illegal for them to have guns. One goes out and gets 300 fucking guns and then beats the shit out of the other kid that doesn't have guns because they said, oh, well, we think he's going to get a gun. It's like, I hope Iran gets a fucking nuke. I mean, that'll actually probably dissuade nuclear war more than anything. You know, because I feel like another thing that Israel could be doing is just, you know, letting their Iron Dome fail so they have an excuse to fucking nuke Iran. And if Iran doesn't have a response, I mean, I guess Pakistan's stepping up, but I think that them having nukes would dissuade a nuclear war more so than start one. And, you know, so I don't know. I mean, you can't tell both sides they can't have nukes, allow one to stockpile them with impunity, and then go ballistic on the other one for the suggestion. And which, by the way, for the last 40 fucking years, it's been, oh, next month they're going to have a nuke. And, you know, next year they're going to have a nuke. It's like, I've been hearing this since I was fucking born. So eventually, you know, it's like the boy that cried wolf. I mean, and like I said, I feel like they deserve to have a nuke. I mean, if your neighbor who constantly is fucking with you has 300 of them, then, you know, who's to say they're not allowed to have one of their own? I mean, they're the only ones that are allowing, you know, nuclear inspectors to come over and check. They're the ones following the fucking rules. They're an actual real country. So, you know, and they're the ones being attacked. So in my mind, they have a hell of a lot more of a right to have nukes than Israel. And especially if you consider the fucking Samson option, which Israel's like directly expressed, they're just going to nuke the entire fucking world if they feel like they're going to fall. I mean, if that doesn't concern you, I don't know what the fuck would. I mean, a rogue state that isn't supposed to have nukes, that's conducting terrorism on a fucking weekly basis, has multiple nukes and says that they're going to just launch them at the whole world if they feel like they're going to fall. And they're the ones pressing this nonstop. I mean, fuck. If that's not a terrorist threat, like, please tell me what is.
I love that
Myron,
example.
what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's comical. You know, it really is, you know, the pot calling the kettle black in the highest senses, where you have, you know, and let's not forget that Israel acquired their nuclear program by illegally stealing uranium from us, contrary to what John F. Kennedy wanted, the last president to stand up to the Zionist regime. And, you know, that's another thing I talked about while I was out there debating, because a lot of people weren't aware of that either, that their nuclear program, you know, absolutely stole resources from us to do it at, you know, against the will of a former U.S. president that got him killed. So, you know, for Israel to sit there and try to be take the moral high ground and say, well, Iran can't have nuclear weapons, but we can, and we got ours illegally, and we're going to still not acknowledge it because we want to continue to get aid from the United States, is, you know, it's hypocrisy at the highest level. And, you know, I think the international world kind of understands this, but Americans might not. And the other thing, too, that's important for people to realize, that it's not illegal to have a civilian nuclear program. It isn't, right? It's by international law, they have the right to have a nuclear program from an energy perspective. And then they also have the right to defend themselves. So if we're going to sit here and say, look, Israel has a right to defend themselves, well, you know, according to Article 51, so does Iran. And they were attacked in a military sense, and they have every right to respond. And that's what they're doing right now. And, you know, Israel, you know, does this bullshit and gets away with it because they know that the United States is going to be able to back them up. And this has directly been the reason why Israel has taken such an aggressive posture with all of their neighbors, and why they've either been able to destabilize them through military conflict, have us bribe them like maybe the Egyptians or the Jordanians, or have some type of, you know, put them into the Abraham Accords. But Israel is literally responsible for almost every single conflict in the Middle East over the past 70 plus years, or they've been the root cause of almost every one. Or if they're not the root cause, there's a significant link to Israel in every single one of these conflicts. So, people say all the time, oh, well, Israel is the only country standing in the way of Islamic terrorism approaching the United States. Well, Islamic terrorism wouldn't even exist, and we wouldn't be getting attacked if we didn't support Israel so much. And I think it's very important also for people to understand, if you want to know your enemy, you need to understand why your enemy is your enemy. You need to understand why they hate us. And, Bush and the other retarded neocons in 2003 were running around saying they hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because of our freedoms, which, by the way, the person that used to write Bush's fucking speeches was a Zionist Jew, by the way, which makes it even funnier. His name, I don't have his name at the top of my head right now, but it's a Zionist Jew, neocon. But, these things, and it's good now because 20 years later, we have the hindsight to see that was all a lie. But it's not that they hate us because of our freedoms. If you read Letter to America by bin Laden, he explicitly goes over his many grievances. And many of the grievances he has is because of American foreign policy that's dictated by who? Dictated by Israel. So, this is kind of, we're kind of coming to the culmination of bad foreign policy in the Middle East, and Iran now is in a do or die situation. They've been pretty restrained. I mean, we killed Qasem Soleimani. We attacked Israel attacked the embassy. They've been bombing and assassinating people all over the place. They killed Ismail Haniyeh in Iran. They bombed and killed Hassan Nasrallah. There's been a significant amount of escalation. And honestly, the operation they did while in the middle of diplomacy talks with the United States, that was just the end of it. And I think now at this point, the Israelis are finally starting to get a taste of the terror and the, death and destruction they've caused in the Middle East over the past several decades. Now they're hiding in fucking bunkers and seeing what it's like to be a Palestinian. The Palestinians don't even have the ability to hide in these bunkers or the access to the food or resources, but they're over here being inconvenienced, listening to sirens, hiding in a bunker, complaining about it. And it's like, this is what your government has basically done to you guys. And Netanyahu, I think, showed up earlier today, assessing the damage. And I think the reality is starting to hit him that, Israel's a glass cannon. They can't sustain continuous hypersonic missiles because as time passes, it's only going to be harder and harder for them to defend themselves because the interceptor missiles are extremely expensive and a lot of them are getting through. So even if a fraction of these missiles get through, it's causing monumental damage for Israel that, quite frankly, they don't have the ability or resources to recover from to the same degree. They're not used to getting hit direct like they're getting hit. You got idiots like Yosef Haddad on Twitter crying, saying, oh my God, look at this. We're getting hit by the terror regime. And I find it incredible how a lot of these Zionist propaganda people, they'll sit there and they'll show you the damage in Tel Aviv. They'll sit there and tell you, oh my God, this person got killed, or oh, look at this, blah, blah. But they'll never tell you why. They'll never tell you, oh yeah, well, we hit them first. Oh, we've destabilized all these Arab countries. Oh yeah, we kill kids in Gaza. They will never tell you why they're getting hit. They'll just tell you we got hit. And like October 7th, classic Zionist talking points every single time. Well, on October 7th, 1,200 Israelis were killed. Well, really? Were 1,200 Israelis killed by Hamas like you guys claim? We know about 400 of them were IDF, which means they're enemy combatants. We know that a bunch of them were killed by the Apache helicopters. A bunch of them were killed by the fucking tanks shooting into the goddamn kibbutzes, right? We know that there was disarray and discombobulation and that the Hannibal Directive was activated on that day, and Yoav Gallant even admitted this on Israeli TV. So was it really 1,200 that were killed by Hamas? We don't even fucking know. But already the damage was done. Oh, they beheaded babies. Oh, they raped the women. Oh, they did X, Y, Z. And then you go ahead and you do some analysis, you find out that a lot of it was lies, and it was just to justify the ridiculous amount of bombing all across Gaza. So what the Israelis are experiencing now, right, hiding in bunkers, this is the consequence of decades upon decades of bad fucking foreign policy with their neighbors. And the chickens have come home to roost, man. And I think at this point, it's one of two things going to happen. Either Iran is going to bomb them so significantly that Israel's going to finally have to realize, like, okay, we can't continue on with this effort, or the United States is going to have to come in and do an offensive to protect them. But then you got to ask yourself, well, is it worth our time and our resource and our effort? Because, we basically have to take a B-2 bomber, go into Iran and bomb this fucking big ass mountain that this nuclear facility is in. Is it worth it? Is it worth our soldiers getting attacked in the Gulf? Is it worth the amount of money it's going to cost us? Is it worth starting another war in the Middle East while we got protests going around all across the United States and people are protesting against the immigration stuff while, inflation is high, while the economy isn't at the best? Is it really worth it to go and do another war? And then on top of that, people need to know, It took us years to get Iraq under control. We had to put roughly 200,000 boots on the ground. We had to do airstrikes for damn near a month prior to doing it. Cost us trillions of dollars. Over 1 million people died. Like, are we prepared to do that with Iran? Because that's what it's really going to take when it comes to regime change. If we actually want to do a regime change, not only are we going to have to go ahead and attack these nuclear facilities, we're going to have boots in the ground and go in there. Well, Iran is significantly stronger and more sophisticated than the Iraqi army was. So it's not going to be a walk in the park. We're talking about an enormous amount of investment from the American perspective if we actually want to affect regime change. And the other reason too, I think that's important for people to realize, the reason why the Israelis want a regime change so mad is because they want to go ahead and put in a puppet government like the Shah so that they can go ahead and continue their Greater Israel project without being impeded. Iran is what stands in the way of doing that. They're the last country left from the clean break memo in 1996. And it's funny how all of this has come to fruition and Iran is the last one left. So they're going to fight like there's no tomorrow. And unlike the Israelis, these Iranians, these guys, they're not afraid to die, right? That's another thing when it comes to these Muslim armies versus the IDF. These IDF soldiers are scared to die. These other motherfuckers are not, right? And last time I checked, it's probably not a good idea to go at people that, you know, relish the ability to be martyred and say, oh, I'm going to go to heaven, whatever. It's just not a good idea. So the Israelis cannot continue to sustain this level of damage in Tel Aviv. And then as far as the regime change, it's going to be difficult to do, damn near impossible. We're going to need to put boots on the ground to do it. And Iran is a huge fucking country. I think 60 million people live there, bigger military, more sophisticated ballistic missile program. American soldiers are going to die in the process. And I don't think it's worth it, right? We're repeating history of what we did roughly 20 years ago. What do we have to show for the Iraq war? Abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Like, we have nothing to show for that. And, you know, with a regime change, another thing that's also important people need to realize, if you're going to go ahead and affect a regime change, well, guess what? Once we leave, the people that were, all the rebel groups, etc., they're going to take over. We left Afghanistan. Who's in power now? The Taliban. So we wasted 20 years trying to get the Taliban out of there. As soon as we leave, in the embarrassing way that we left, leaving all that classified equipment there, the Taliban now take back over, and now they have access to all this equipment. So regime change is just not, it's not a good idea, and it's going to be damn near impossible. And I don't think it's worth it at this point. We didn't learn our fucking lesson 20 years ago. So I hope we don't step in and try to affect the regime change on behalf of the Israelis. But yeah, man, it is what it is.
Well, with the with the Shahs, if that's who they're trying to put in, remember they're interlocked and interconnected with the Israelis, like the right, or even the Jewish people. So like the Shah, I think his daughters are married to Jewish guys. There was a big wedding, so it's almost like them putting themselves in power now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the reason why they want to, because the thing is this, like. The reason why Israel's so desperate to get rid of the nuclear program is because they know that if the Iranians get the nuclear bomb, they will not be able to affect the regime change that they want. Because, you know, look, I use North Korea as an example all the time. Look at North Korea. We've had tensions with them forever, but we don't dare attack them, or we don't, you know, push too much of a military threat because they have nuclear weapons. So it forces us to respect them, right? I mean, Trump, you know, met with Kim Jong-un and shook his hand. You know, after the whole Rocket Man debacle. And the reason for that is because the North Korea forced us to basically respect them. Now, if the Iranians get the nuclear bomb, that will force the Israelis to respect them, and then they have to exercise some level of diplomacy. But the Israelis never want to exercise diplomacy. It's always forced diplomacy. Either we bribe them to cooperate with Israel like Jordan or Egypt, or we bomb the fuck out of them like we did with Iraq, or invade like we did with Iraq, or we use clandestine operations to destabilize them. So this is the problem with the Israelis, is they can't play nice with their neighbors. They never can. And we're an enabler on that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Let me just quickly give a couple of updates, and then we'll get right back into, I've got a few more questions. So as you know, Israel has we mentioned this earlier, but it's been reported again. Israel has stopped Israelis from fleeing the country. Ben Gurion Airport is closed and no Israeli is allowed to leave. And because of that, the US have issued a warning. Actually, we were going to tweet this out, but I'm not sure, it might be out already. The embassy in Jerusalem will close its doors starting today, including the consular section in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and will not provide any services. The embassy is currently not in a position to evacuate Americans or directly assist them in leaving Israel. Ben Gurion Airport remains closed, and there are no commercial or even private flights operating from there. So Israel is in complete disaster. People are locked in. There's many people who want to get out, and they just can't get out. And obviously Fox News are even reporting how bad it is. But I mean, coming back to the point about that, when you look at this is kind of more from a socio perspective, right? But when you look at the Israelis and you look at generally the Jewish people, especially within the state of Israel and elsewhere, they're quite soft in that regard. Like, they'll claim anti-Semitism for the most minor of issues. Obviously, Dan, you're a victim of that, as are you, Myron, as are many others, many people on this platform. How long will that type of people be able to endure such a real battle and war when they're having to spend such a long time in bunkers? Dan.
I mean, I don't know. I love the fact that they attacked Iran and they were relishing it and they were celebrating and talking about, like, fuck around and find out. And, as soon as Iran retaliates, like, oh my God, we're in shelters. It's like them begging for sympathy and everybody's telling them to get fucked. So I don't know. It's kind of like when you see the bully in school beating the shit out of a little kid and finally, the little kid sticks up for himself. It's like everybody's excited. So I think people are cheering this on and they're not getting the sympathy that they used to. I think the word anti-Semitism has no meaning anymore. I think that, them throwing out the Holocaust, all the typical bullshit that they used to do, that used to shut down debates or get them sympathy or, immediately shift the narrative, is not working anymore. And I think it's kind of taking the mask off, and you're seeing that. You're seeing it with Dave Portnoy. You're seeing with all these fucking obnoxious Jews that, are acting like assholes. And then when they shriek anti-Semitism or, how many fucking Jews have to die, whatever, and everybody kind of laughs at them, is like, fuck off. They just can't handle it because, they've gotten away with this for so long that it's kind of like ingrained. It's like that whole thing of, like, you take somebody out to dinner, 10 times and you don't pay on the 11th time, they look at you like you fucked them. Well, this is kind of a similar situation. They've gotten away with it for so long that now they're not getting away with it. They're freaking out.
Myron, same question to you. I know you had that incident with them at that debate, if I remember.
Yeah, I mean, the term anti-Semitism literally means nothing anymore, right? And they're trying to, obviously update the definition. The IHRA is doing everything in their mind in their power to, extend and broaden the definition of anti-Semitism to fit their political ideology. We saw that they were doing this to, justify deporting the college kids. And, it's going to get to a point now where, well, it already is here, where if you criticize the Israeli government, they're going to go ahead and call that anti-Semitism. But, the thing is that this is the first time that we've been able to capture a genocide on camera, right? Like real time. Like, this has been going on since the beginning of human history, but it hits different when you're actually seeing it real time. And obviously this has made the international community very appalled, right? It's one thing to hear about a genocide, it's nothing to see it. And, every single expert, to include Israeli Holocaust researchers, even they're coming out and saying, yeah, what's going on in Gaza is a genocide. So when you're seeing the Israelis get hit back and get a taste of their own medicine, a lot of people are celebrating. A lot of people are like, this is awesome, blah, blah, blah. And, this is kind of the pushback from 70 to 80 years of Israeli imperialism and them just running rampant all across the Middle East, man. So the sympathy is absolutely gone. I look at like I said, the Yosef Haddad guy. If you go look at his Twitter account, and he has a big following, he has like hundreds of thousands of followers. People are in there like making fun of him, saying like, oh, well, now you guys are getting a taste of what it's like to be a Palestinian for a day, etc. So, these guys were cheering and celebrating, the destruction of Gaza. Dumbass, what's that dude's name? The Indian dude, I forget his name. The Vivid retard. He literally posts every single day showing like Gaza being flattened, saying, oh, look, Hamas started this, fuck around and find out. Okay, motherfucker, well, you guys are fucking around and finding out right now, because you guys are sitting there in your fucking bunkers, like little bitches, because you guys are getting a taste of your own medicine. So we'll see what happens, man, because like I said before, Israel is not going to be able to continue to maintain this conflict long. The Iron Dome and the Arrow and the Sling have a finite amount of interceptor missiles, and they won't be able to stop. And once they lose their missile defense system, they're cooked, dude. Like once they ran out of interceptors, they are absolutely fucking cooked, bro. Like they're done. So they really need to start. I
remember, Myron,
yeah.
like Trump came out and said that he'd actually freshly stockpiled them a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'm sure they probably already run through a significant amount of interceptor missiles. So right between that and the THAAD and everything else, they won't be able to maintain this defense forever, man. And once they run out of interceptor missiles, or once they don't have as many, they're absolutely cooked, man. Israel's going to be in a very vulnerable position, and they'll finally get a taste of what it's like and the terror that the rest of the Middle East has had to endure through them.
It's crazy. We are expecting another bombardment from Iran in the next few hours, because they normally do it in the dark, and it's only going to stay dark in Iran for probably another few hours. So we are expecting major attacks.
David Frum was the guy's name. That was Bush's writer, by the way, chat. Thank you, Josie, for getting me that. Yes, David Frum was the guy that wrote Bush's speeches. Neocon Zionist.
I mean, one thing I have to give credit for is when I'm looking at, I know we're in an echo chamber, generally speaking, but when you look at a lot of the kind of MAGA people, they are largely pushing back against going to war with Iran, and a number of people on the right as well. I think, what's his name again? Charlie Kirk did a poll asking if they should join a war with war against Iran, and 90% of his followers, and his followers are basically Zionist evangelicals, said that no, they shouldn't. So I mean, that, I think in a way that indicates the psyche that people definitely don't want to do this. With the war in Iraq, they manufactured consent after September the 11th. How would it work from that perspective, Dan, if the leadership force America into war, but the people disagree with it?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to justify it somehow, right? And I think that when you've got people like Piers Morgan jumping ship, that's a pretty good indicator that the fucking tide is turning, because I can promise you it's not because he had some sudden, dose of morality, right? It's because his audience is turning on him in real time. And I don't think that he wants to lose his audience, because I think he realizes, like, his show producers, could continue putting him on, but if people, are just constantly like, fuck you, Piers, in the comments, and people don't like him, his days are numbered. So, and you see the people that have kind of like gone off on their own, they've all done really well. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens.
Isn't Piers Morgan? I think he's pushing the war with Iran, though.
No, I'm saying in the sense that he's finally, like, chastising the Israeli, officials for, committing a genocide, really, at the end of the day, killing journalists, doing all the things that they've been doing. He's more recently been coming out on the side of the Palestinians. So when he was adamantly opposed to it for, at least, a year and a half. So I'm just saying, I think the tide is turning a bit. That's why I'm so concerned with the false flag attack, is because they really, at this point, need something to point to, for a reason to go to war with Iran. Because this whole thing is like, oh, we just have to defend Israel, and, we just have to defend Israel. Like, I think that's kind of wearing pretty thin. Even on the evangelical boomer retards, I think they're going to need a little bit more, and that's why I'm concerned. I mean, look, September 11th was done for a reason, right? And there was a clear cause and effect, and it was effective, right? So I just think they're going to need to have something like that. I think they're going to point to it. I mean, they've already been hinting at it, like, oh, Iran tried to assassinate Bush, or sorry, not Bush, but Trump. They were like, I mean, they said that numerous times, and so they're just doing everything in their power to point. And that's why I said it would be a disaster if Iran actually did anything to a U.S. military base. I mean, I know that's what Israel is like praying for, but I don't think they're dumb enough to do that. And if they don't, and we truly don't have any reason to go into this war, I think that Trump is going to get a lot of pushback. I think that it's just unjustifiable. I don't think anybody wants it. There's no benefit for it. There's no reason. But who knows, Who knows?
Yeah, I could add to that real quick. You got people, right? Like, Charlie Kirk is probably one of the biggest, political commentators, conservative in America. And, he's super pro-Israel. Even he you know, is saying for us to not get involved from a offensive standpoint or not get too involved. You know, Dan Wall, you know, Matt Walsh, like, you know, the thing is this, when I've come to realize this when it comes to political commentators in the United States, a lot of them aren't well versed in foreign policy, especially Middle Eastern foreign policy. And I think that's by design and on purpose, because if you are well versed and understand Middle Eastern foreign policy, you will understand the bullshit that Israel does. And obviously in conservative media, if you're critical of Israel, that is a death sentence to you. Okay. It's why they basically canceled Nick, because he started asking questions. It's why certain political commentators that are considered far right, because if you criticize Israel, they automatically put you in the far right category. Because regular.
Well, no, now it's the woke right. They came up with a whole new term, right? It's the woke right. You know, if you're against Israel, then you're a woke right. You know, that's a new like talking point.
Yeah, they either call you woke right or they call you far right. But either way, it's a pejorative insult to anyone on the right wing that's critical of Israel, right? Because traditional conservative media has always shilled for Israel. What is the Daily Wire, PragerU, Blaze Media, you know, Bongino, Crowder, Charlie Kirk. All of these guys have always been pro-Israel and never critical of Israel for obvious reasons, because they run the fucking conservative media landscape. But people are waking up, man. Even people like Charlie Kirk can't justify, you know, saying, "Oh yeah, we should be assisting Israel from a military perspective." He put out a poll and asked his audience, "Should we get involved?" And like 90% of his audience literally said no. So that's a good sign. Dan, you're gonna say something?
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And you know, you see it. I mean, and you know, my uncle used to be one of those people that was just, you know, oh, we have to support Israel. We just have to support Israel because that's what he heard. Well, you know, guess what? You know, one of the people that he listened to is Candace Owens, and she's not saying that anymore, you know, and now, you know, Tucker Carlson's not saying that anymore. And, you know, now Piers Morgan's not saying that anymore. And, you know, so it's like, you know, these people are, you know, they're turning. I mean, obviously, like the masses have figured this out, but even the people that are resistant to this, like you said, you know, the Matt Walshes, you know, the people out there that are, you know, have been historically like just unanimously pro-Israel, even them, they're saying, you know, we shouldn't be going to war. Because I mean, it's so fucking obvious. Like, why would we go to war? What do we benefit? We benefit in no way, shape, or form, and there's all sorts of negative implications. So, you know, as a politician, you are supposed to do what is in the best interest of your fucking people, not what is in the best interest of a foreign nation. And when you choose a foreign nation over your own people, I mean, that is the definition textbook of treason. So, and that's what you have. You have our politicians committing treason. And whether it's because of blackmail or because they're being bribed, or I don't give a fuck what the reason is. You know, you do not put a foreign nation's interest above yours. And for us to go to war for Israel is putting a foreign nation's interest above America's, because we get absolutely nothing and we will lose a lot. It'll be, you know, very expensive. It'll turn a lot of, you know, Arab Muslims against us. It's just complete net negative. And it's not right either. You know, like, Israel is the aggressor. They're not responding. We don't need to defend them. They are the aggressor. So, you know, they want to run around the fucking schoolyard and punch a bunch of people in the face and they get hit back. Well, hey, fuck around, find out. That's how life works, you know? So this whole thing of like us defending them, that's out the window because they are the aggressor. And the fact that Trump told them to stand down and they didn't, I mean, if he supports them after they basically spit in his face, that'll tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, and he tried to frame it as, oh, I knew what was going on or whatever. His ego won't even let him admit that, like, the fucking Israelis severed his fucking diplomacy. He tried to come in on Truth Social or whatever and make it sound as if, like, oh, yeah, I knew what was going on, and, you know, that those weapons they use are our weapons and shit like that. It's like, bro, like, dude, just admit the fact that, like, Netanyahu doesn't respect you. He does whatever the fuck he wants. And quite frankly, you have to play nice with him because Miriam Adelson fucking gave you $200 million plus and kept you from going to prison. That's the fucking reality here. That is why Trump is beholden to the Zionist lobby. They literally put him in fucking office. You know, you got losers like fucking Bill Ackman saying, oh, the U.S. needs to get involved. No, fuck you, dude. How about you go ahead? You go to Israel. You can suit up. You can take your billions of dollars and fucking go fight over there. None of us want to fucking fight for the Jews anymore, man. Like, we're good, dude. We're totally, we understand the ramifications of fighting in Middle Eastern wars. And, you know, it took decades for us to figure it out. But I'm glad that people are waking up and realizing that, like, war is just no longer an option. And when you got super pro Zionist political commentators even saying we shouldn't get involved, that's how you know that the tide has turned, man, which is a good sign. It's a really good sign. Because I'll tell you this, if this was going on 20 years ago, oh man, people would have been like, yeah, we need to come in and defend Israel, all that stupid dumb shit, you know? Because the conservatives in America, or sorry, the Republican Party in America, you know, they openly cuck for Israel, right? Democrats do too, but Democrats kind of do it covertly, especially with what they're doing in Gaza, but the Republicans openly cuck for them. So it's good to see that the general public, you know, is not supportive of a conflict with Iran on the behalf of Israel. And it would be tough. It would be so hard to do. Like, it took us years to get Iraq under control. And when we left, guess what happened? It just, boom, a vacuum suck, and then a bunch of terrorists come in. So regime change is just not a viable option. Sometimes it's better to just allow that dictator to be in place than, it's better to have the enemy that you know versus the enemy that you don't. Because the Arab world, people don't understand this. The entire Arab world is run by monarchs or dictators. And if you remove that person, as much as you might hate them, that person kept some level of semblance of order. So as soon as you remove them from power, you end up with a fucking vacuum, and rebels take over, and it becomes destabilized, it becomes crazy. Now, obviously,
yeah, I mean, just look at the history, right? I mean, look, we removed Gaddafi from Libya. Now, you know, that place is, you know, it was doing really well. Now it's a fucking absolute shithole. You can buy a slave for $300. You know, you look at what happened with Saddam. You know, they said he was such a bad guy, and we need to topple that regime, and it'll be good for the stability of the, you know, the region. You know, that's what Netanyahu said. You know, he came and fucking testified in front of Congress, and we had to do it, and they had weapons of mass destruction, and, you know, it'll add stability to the region, and it's been an absolute fucking disaster. So historically, it's a, you know, he keeps telling us, he's like, oh, you do this, and it'll add stability to the region. All it's done is the exact fucking opposite. So it's like, how many times do you have to do the same thing and, you know, get a negative result to realize, like, hey, this is not the answer. It's not the answer to just, you know, topple regimes. It's, you know, it's not our fucking business anyways. And it's all for the benefit of Israel. We get nothing out of it. It's just pure bullshit. And these countries are much worse for it. I mean, you look at them now and you look at where they were before, and it's like, they're all much worse. So who won? The only person that won is fucking Israel. We lost, cost us trillions of dollars. These countries are fucking destroyed, you know, and who's the beneficiary? The fucking Israeli Jews, once again. You know, I'm just fucking, I think people are tired of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I've got another question, which is, Myron, you said that a lot of right-wing commentators are coming out against the war. One who isn't is someone from your hometown of Miami, is Patrick Bet-David. He's obviously an Iranian. He's part of the want to put the ex-Shahs back in place. Again, that's not a democracy, that's a monarchy. But he wants the monarchists back in, which and he's been pushing it significantly. He recently did a video where he claimed that the region was in peace until the current Iranian regime came into power, which shows his level of ignorance, because that means he doesn't know the 48 war, the 56 war, the 67 war, the 67-70 war, the 1930 Yom Kippur war. So it shows his ignorance. But anyway, putting his ignorance aside, he is somebody who's pushing America to go to war. He is someone who's pushing for a massive regime change, and he wants the monarchists, who are basically linked to obviously the Jewish Zionists, back in power. Someone who is as influential as him on the platform he's on, and he never really brings anyone on who can actually push back on him. I know, Dan, you've been on before, but generally speaking, he doesn't. What's your thoughts on that, Myron, in terms of him and his statements?
Yeah, no, sorry, I just stepped away, but I got the end of what you were saying. Yeah, I mean, you know, I actually responded to this because I saw that he talked about how you know, that there weren't any wars under the Shah, or he made some kind of crazy claim like that. Or the Iran is responsible for a lot of the conflicts. That's absolutely not true. It's Israel. If you look at every single conflict in the Middle East has been involved, whether, you know, you had mentioned the Yom Kippur War, 6-Day War, all these different conflicts is because of Israel. So for him to say that, you know, here's the thing with Iran, right? And I was talking about this earlier. Like, they had their first democratically elected president in the 1950s. I think his name was Mogadesi. I might be mispronouncing it. And we ran an Operation Ajax, where us and the Brits and the Israelis basically destabilized them and got him out of power because he wanted to nationalize their oil, right? To obviously protect their sovereignty and make sure that, you know, it's not just the Brits, you know, profiting off of their resource. And we got him out of power, and that led to the Shah getting in power. He was wildly unpopular, and he basically allowed rejected cleric to take over, and this is how we have the regime that we have now. So it was through American intervention and Israel, along with the British and the Israelis, that led to the current regime they have now. And you know, and obviously when the Iranian Revolution took place in 1979, this led to the embassy workers being kidnapped and all the aggressive and bad political tension that we've had with Iran. So we have ourselves to blame for that, man. And this is what happens when you affect regime change. You might not necessarily be able to control who gets power after that. And this is from Western intervention, man.
When you look at, for example, what Dan mentioned, that every single kind of war that's occurred has occurred for Israeli interests. They've never benefited anybody else except themselves. Obviously, we look at the mass occupation and proliferation that happened in there. Let's say they were to get their way. There was a video that came out today. Well, I posted it today. Obviously, it's a much older video. And what Israel said is that if they take out Iran, next is Pakistan. Now, Pakistan being the next one is kind of by the by. But what this shows is their kind of expansionist attitude. First, it was, we need to get Iraq out of the way. Then it was get Afghanistan out the way, I mean, the other way around. And then it was to get Syria out the way. And now it's to get Iran out the way. And then later it'll be Pakistan. And then after that, it'll be another country. Well, it'll be a bit of Saudi Arabia. So basically creating the Israeli empire in a way, or creating destruction around every person in the Middle Eastern or Southeastern region. So it means it's never going to end. What's your thoughts about that, Dan?
Well, I mean, they've got the whole Greater Israel plan. It's one of these things where, I feel like he's made his position pretty clear. I mean, he said the regimes that he's wanted to topple. I mean, he's pretty much toppled all of them except for Iran. I mean, it's, to me, the writing's on the wall. And I also think that he's in a bit of a, rat in the corner position where, if he doesn't continue the war, then, he might go to jail and he has to face trial and whatever. So,
I suppose I can
it's it's a bit of an unfortunate situation, right? You've got a guy that's clearly doesn't want to stop, and he's, he's in a position where it wouldn't benefit him to stop. And then you've got us just, waiting behind him like a fucking loyal lapdog that's willing to just, or attack dog, whatever, that's just willing to go whenever he says go. So I don't know. I mean, this is just kind of just playing out the way, you would expect it to play out. They continue to fuck with everybody around them. And then, when they get a reaction, then they call us to come, bail them out. I mean, we've seen this movie before, so I guess. Going, and there's not really much we can do, I mean, we just
still here,
sit here and wait and just, and just see what Trump's gonna do. But it's just unfortunate being in, a bit of a powerless situation where, you're funding a genocide, you've got no say, and your president seems to just be completely fucking compromised along with all the rest of your politicians.
Yeah. Myron, same question to you. And a lot of people do mention, like, for example, the countries stated in the clean break memo, which is obviously Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya, and Somalia, and Sudan. And obviously they say Iran's the last one. But then there's other videos where they talk about other countries as well. Like I mentioned the one where he said after Iran, it's Pakistan. And so why I'm mentioning that is not that it's Pakistan specifically, but it just shows that even them 7 countries, it seems to suggest that that's not their only target. And maybe even Greater Israel isn't their only target, because that's just
is there anything else you
within
need?
a specific region, and like Pakistan isn't part of the Greater Israel project. So doesn't that indicate that the plan is significantly worse? The expansionist ideology of the Zionists is significantly worse, whether it's expansion based on their control or destruction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that people understand, there is a religious perspective on a lot of the moves that Israel makes, right? They want to build, they want to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and be able to create their temple, right? And they know doing that will anger the Arab world, right? And basically, if they don't have an agreement through the Abraham Accords, through a Muslim country, that pretty much puts them on the radar to potentially be a target of Israel's moves. because they understand that for them to do everything that they want to do, they need to neutralize Muslim majority countries and either make sure they're part of the Abraham Accords or they're destroyed. So Pakistan is in an interesting situation because Pakistan is kind of an ally of the United States, but not really, right? There's a reason why Obama didn't notify them before they ran the operation in Abbottabad with Osama bin Laden. Pakistan plays both sides, right? They kind of, deal with the United States because they have to, but at the same time, they also understand that the United States can't be trusted and neither can be Western powers. So I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say hypothetically, Iran was, toppled by Israel. Nothing would shock me if the Israelis tried to work on Pakistan next. And the reason for that is because Pakistan has nuclear weapons, which is a big fucking threat to Israel. Obviously, they can't deal with the Pakistanis right now because Iran's a way bigger threat. But I would not be surprised if Pakistan wasn't the next one on the target list, for sure, because of their nuclear capability.
But then that adds to the whole point that even though there is the religious element, which is the Greater Israel Project, that there are countries that they're targeting that isn't part of that Greater Israel Project. And so it's maybe demonstrating that in addition to the religious component, there's a much bigger component that is they just want to dominate. Myron.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, they look at it like the more places they control, the more they're able to protect their own interests, right? And one thing I will give to the Israelis is they know how to stick together, right? And they know how to ensure, there's this saying that if one Jew gets money, 10 Jews get money. They're fantastic at, ensuring that other members of their community succeed, which is why they have such tight-knit communities and they're so successful. So no,
that's a golden point, Myron. I just want to highlight that because people don't realize. So I just want to give people an example. Like everybody knows Mario is my friend, right? But if you look at it, his space is completely Zionist controlled. Now, what's the reason for that? It's not that he's directly getting paid by the Israeli government. That's not what's happening, right? But the Zionists, what they do is they stick together and they look out for their own country, even if the Jews are outside of Israel or not. They look out for their own country. And what that means is that they'll basically pressure. So they'll be like, look, we're not going to give you these deals. We're not going to give you those deals. We're not going to invest in your company. We're going to make sure you get cancelled. They'll put those forms of pressure on him. We'll give you opportunities. We'll do all these things for you. So it ends up being all of those. And because they'll stick together, there's that decision to make. Whereas people who are anti-Zionist, all they do is fight amongst each other. All you see, even within our movement, how many people have fought amongst each other. All they do is look out for themselves. There's none of this loyalty to support any form of anti-Zionist coalition. There's no thing about when, for example, someone like Mario, let's all of us boycott space like what the Zionists were doing, or let's all pressure him from a financial perspective or incentivize him or whatever it may be. And so for him, it becomes an easy decision. These people are going to suck up to me anyway, and those guys, I'm going to lose out. So I'll have to just gear towards them. And then he's just one example, but what I mean is then they'll do it to every single person, whether it's an influencer, whether it's a politician.
They did it to PBD. That's why he talks the way he does about Israel, because
with PBD, maybe so, I think, because he is an Iranian Shah guy, because what they did was, when they left Iran, they took a huge amount of Iranian wealth, so they're loyal to the Shah as opposed to being loyal to anything else. So with him, it may be that as well, but I think with him, it's maybe the loyalty to the Shahs and the money they raped from Iran when they left. So, coming back to the point, when you see, I think that's what happened. So, in terms of that, what's your thoughts? I think you made a golden point about pressure.
Yeah, no, dude, it does not. This is why I always kind of laugh when people say, "Oh, you're talking about Israel like you're a grifter." Being critical of Israel or them boys, right? I'm on YouTube. Hell, I gotta to police my language. Even that goes to show right there in itself. The fact that I use certain phrases, right, to say what I say on certain platforms, literally proves the point that they run a lot of the infrastructure in the United States, and to criticize them absolutely is like a death sentence from a career standpoint. There's a reason why so few people are willing to have this conversation, or people stay away from it, because it's not beneficial to you financially. When people say, "Oh, you're a grifter," dude, if the goal of a grifter is to make as much money as possible, being critical of Israel is probably one of the dumbest things you can do if you want to make a bunch of fucking money. You lose money by talking about this. You lose opportunities. You get blacklisted. There's people that literally won't have me on their show because of the things I talk about and how I'm critical of Israel, right? They'll debank you. I got demonetized on YouTube for this shit. I literally lost millions upon millions of dollars for talking about this before.
Well, I can corroborate that, Myron, because I don't know if I ever told you this, but leading up to the elections, basically leading up to the elections, obviously I can't give away too much, but leading up to the elections, there was only 4 people banned from the biggest. Obviously now we're bigger than them anyway, but at that time we weren't. There was only one big space and we were second, but we were far off. Now we're bigger when you look at it organically. And the only 4 people who the Trump administration said should not be allowed on that platform leading up to the elections was you, me, and Nick, and there was one other guy. So that kind of demonstrates like the censorship. But anyway, do continue, Myron.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it just goes to show that you know, the censorship on this topic is absolutely crazy. We could talk about it now after October 7th. But, you know, if you talked about this before October 7th, dude, it was one of the fastest ways to get banned off the internet. You know, I lost millions of dollars at this shit because of getting demonetized. So, yeah, dude, you know, anyone that has the nerve to say, oh, yeah, you're grifting, because a couple of idiots have said that. They're like talking about Israel and whatever is like a grift. Dude, it's actually the worst grift you can have because it will make you fucking lose opportunities. If anything, being pro-Israel helps you way more. Being pro-Israel opens up way more fucking doors from a career perspective. This is why, like, look, I love TV.
100%. Like, these guys are retarded. They always
reasons.
You know, I agree with you, Myron. Like, even when they call me a grifter, I'm like, wait a second, you get 0 money after we got demonetized as well, and you got less. So before October 7th, I got even on social media, I used to get a lot more money. After, even though my engagement was a lot less, after October 7th, the money decreased, and then we got demonetized, so it completely went. We have to make money outside of social media. And so the opportunities are ridiculously worse, because I told you, like, in this movement, the anti-Zionist movement, there is no loyalty. There is no kind of looking out for each other. Everyone's like not there to support you. Whereas the Zionists do. This is the reason they win. So I agree with you on that. But do continue, Myron.
Yeah, no, they stick together. They obviously, you know, there's far more financial incentive to be pro-Israel. Like I said, there's a reason why the biggest conservative commentators in America are all pro-Israel. It's just, that's what it is. So whenever someone says you're grifting by being critical of Israel, I always laugh, because it's like, no, that's probably one of the dumbest things you can do if your goal is to grift and make money. But I'll come back, guys. I'll be back in a little bit.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I'll stay in the space, but I'll be back. I'll just have myself muted so I don't interrupt.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming. Dan, what's your thoughts on that? Because I know you lost a huge amount of money. They basically made you resign from the board. Then they didn't. What was it about the likeness that they didn't allow you to use your likeness on a new company in Canada?
Yeah, the Canadian court basically just ruled against me no matter what. It's kind of a bit of a long story, but basically the shareholders of Ignite unanimously voted to have me be the sole director and chairman of the board. I believe it was in the end of 2023, and then I became critical of Israel. And you have to have a 67% shareholder vote. And even by their accounting, I have at least 47% of the shares of Ignite. So it would make it impossible to vote me out, because I'm obviously not going to vote for myself to be outed. So they illegally kicked me off. And yeah, just basically just kind of hijacked my fucking company, which is pretty crazy. And are refusing to pay dividends as well. But anyways, I don't really, want to get in too much to that. I got to run anyways. But I think at the end of the day, this is kind of like the old selling your soul. It's like, if you can monetarily benefit from doing what you know is the wrong thing, I think, not all the things in the Bible, or things that they talk about are literal. But I think what they meant by selling your soul is by doing something that you know is wrong to financially benefit. And I think you pay for that, and I think that's the test. And I think that's the test that a lot of us are going to face, is basically like, you're going to know what the right thing is, and it's getting, the right path is hard and it's difficult, and it's, maybe going to cost you money, but, that I think is what defines somebody, is like, okay, if they're going to do something that is correct, that is detrimental to them, because it's easy to do it when it's, convenient, but when it's not, that's the test. And I think the flip side is, are you willing to sell out for money? And, if you are, then I think you failed the test. But that's all I got, brother. I got to jump.
Appreciate you as always, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on the space. Everyone always values you coming on and giving them your outlook. So appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Cool, man. Have a good one, brother. Later.
Appreciate it. That was Dan Bilzerian, obviously legend, the guy who risked it all to call out and speak out against the genocide that was happening in Gaza. I really appreciate him, and always appreciate Myron coming on the space as well. Do give him a follow on his X page. The guy's a amazing guy, and also do I think he's I know he's on YouTube, so do follow him on his YouTube. It's called, one second, I've got it up here. It's called Fed Reacts, I think. Oh no, it's called Myron Gaines X. His YouTube account and his Rumble account and Kick as well. So we did Kick for a bit. We need to get back onto that, but yeah. So appreciate Myron as always, and do check him out, and do check out Dan as well. Give him a follow, although I'm assuming everybody already follows him. So that's awesome. Let me just quickly give you some more breaking news, and then we'll get right into it. There's that Israeli ambassador to Washington said many people were killed in the Iranian ballistic missile attacks. We have achieved great successes in the war and are working to limit Iran's capabilities and protect the people of Israel. But he has admitted that many people were killed. We've also got a tweet in the nest that basically says in Batiyam yesterday, remember the attacks, that there was at least 9 people who were killed. Although again, those figures, I think me and Truth have been quite consistent on that we think those figures aren't real and they've been exaggerated. And Khaleesi, jump in.
I just wanted to say something, because there's 5 chicks on this space who've sat quietly for an hour and we've not said a word, so I thought I'd just break the mold a bit and say something.
And straight away, Dr. Roshanak puts up her hand. Jump in.
Well, I'm always here to support. I don't know what the resource is for this, but I have this, from an hour ago, that a senior, not even just, a senior Mossad spy was captured while attempting to flee through Bane border. And they say it's because the local residents were staying vigilant and because the Iran security forces were around. But I don't see any full support for it. There is a picture, but that could be anything. Do you guys know anything about this?
Yeah. There was several stories about that. I think about 3 or 4 hours ago, and then they disappeared. But they said he was a senior, and at that time they also released. That was shortly after they said they found the truck, and shortly they said some say 2, others said 8 operatives. So there was a lot of capturing Mossad, and then later on I posted the video of the lab that they found. So within the span of about 2 hours, there was probably 3 or 4 different. We've caught different Mossad spies, and he was a high level one. So I think really, and then it actually started with the Toyota truck with that. They said those were
right.
Launchers. So I think that they were able to escape either they scraped together evidence from that truck that they found and it led to all these other people that they tracked down, or it's disinfo, and but I hope it's true.
So there's a picture of the 2 guys, I guess, who are in the truck sitting next to the truck, and the truck is open and you can see the materials and it makes sense. That, I believe, is valid. This one is just like the guy in prison, basically, or, having been captured. And I don't know if it's like the same guy. They make it sound different. Could be the same, because they said, well, he was trying to get through the border and the residents were being vigilant. So probably you weren't trying to get through the border with that truck and a big chase. I don't know. But I mean, you're right. Maybe they were talking and then they led to other Mossad agents. That doesn't sound like Mossad, though, to crack so easily. Who knows?
No, and well, another thing that, there shortly around that time, there was huge talks of multiple surface air missile sites being taken out. And there was also huge talks of multiple ballistic launch sites that were being hit. And then there was some Iranian news saying that, okay, that's disinformation. They didn't hit our sites. And we had that hack happen where they said there were 70 missiles were launched, but those never happened, or they would have been there by now. and we have this huge quiet before the storm. When we have the announcement of the ships. I don't know if they were hurt or what's going on, but there's been a lot of weird stuff happening today.
So, what is the plan?
I think it got quiet. Guys, repost the space, hit the little purple pill. Make sure
Take
you're
what you
following
must.
everyone up
I have
here
no
with
need
the
for earthly
notifications on for
possessions.
Sully and Khaleesi.
Oh, I was talking to a closed microphone.
Oh, you're talking.
I'm sorry.
I
I'm like,
couldn't hear
babe,
you.
what's she doing?
My bad.
I was-
My bad. My volume is turned down. That's why.
no, my bad, because
sorry.
I'm talking.
I'm sorry,
like,
I got dropped out there.
"What's
I don't know
doing?"
if you heard me or not.
Yes, heard everything you
Okay,
said.
sorry about that.
I was saying that probably, I mean, it's a war. There's a lot of confusion. And also, this space is exceptional in not only the amount and the speed with which we collect data, but the verification to make sure as much as possible that we have correct data. And I imagine by and large, other people are not doing that. They're just jumping on it. They're into the sensationalism. They're caught up in the hype and the excitement. So this is a chance to give a lot of credit to the space. Suleiman, our host, who's keeping it real. We've got amazing people up here. Khaleesi has been here the whole time. Simon, Maze, we had Truth Teller, Ian, Myron, Nathan. Oh, guys are all rock stars, Mofid, everybody. So if you haven't followed these guys, please do. If you have not, there are thousands of people in this room. Please share out the room the way you do it. You go down to the bottom right of the corner of your phone, you press on the button, you'll see the space, and just hit the repost. That's it. And if you've already reposted it, please unrepost and re-repost to activate it and to bring it up closer to you, wherever it is in your timeline. This is an amazing space. If you go through Suleiman's feed, you will be able, if you want to know what's been going on, you will absolutely be able to catch up with everything that's been happening. Everybody here has been a treasure trove of as much as is possible verified information. So if you want to know what's going on, check out people's feeds. Thank you, everybody, for what you've been doing. Thank you, Suleiman. Thank you, Khaleesi. Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Roosbear, I wanted to bring you in because I believe you got family in Iran. Do jump in.
That's right. I just want to confirm what Roshanak said. Thank you, Roshanak جان. سلام خوبین امیدوارم خوب باشید. مرسی سلامت باشین. ممنون از لطفتون. ممنون. I just want to say that the number of explosions in Tehran, the capital, has been decreased significantly. Apparently because the police started capturing Mossad spies or anyone who works in to help these foreign invaders. I just had another update from my parents' family, which is being exploded this afternoon, 3 p.m. because all the attacks was in the night, and that's why my mom went home to pick up some documents and some drugs because my mom got cancer, so she needs to use some medications, and that's what when the explosion happened. But after talking to the local police, they confirmed that it wasn't just a rocket; it was a car with a hidden bomb inside it, and they exploded at the same time. They're still investigating. The police.
I'm sorry, what do you mean they exploded at the same time? You mean a car bomb and a missile?
That's right. That's right. It wasn't a missile, it was a drone, apparently. But I'm not too sure what was the launcher of this drone. The Iranian security service and police are searching places that the Mossad has already built inside, around Tehran, and apparently they use these places, these locations, to launch their drones, and they've been neutralized by the police most likely. And as you said, there are videos that show every truck that wants to enter or exit from Tehran, the capital, they're being inspected by the police to make sure that they're not hidden bombs or anything like that. And also the police has announced publicly that anybody who has rented his or her house to a stranger recently, they need to inform the government. So they may be like short rental price, and they may be hired. They might be hired by Mossad. So the situation is getting a little bit better in the capital. Although people, like the normal people, civilians, they're leaving the city. I mean, for the people who could, and the people who could afford. And electricity is cut in some places. It was one explosion in the water distribution system. So again, uh, yeah, they claim that we're not gonna hit the infrastructure. So they hit the refinery near Tehran. They strike two oil depot in west of Tehran. They've also exploded the water distribution system in north of Tehran, which is Tajrish Square. Roshanak probably knows the location. To Meidune.
Yeah. We have videos of that.
Yes. So at